to leave before we talk a little bit about Abraham. I'm afraid maybe if we do some kind of informal session at some point this afternoon or this evening, if we get to it, then we'll talk a little bit about the icon thing I wanted to mention. It's not really about icons, it's more about what Ingrid brought up yesterday, the molding of the human being. But now I would like to focus on Abraham. And it's perhaps not a figure from the Bible that comes to mind to you as of first importance. But he was. In the time of the New Testament, when the Gospel of Matthew was written down, I told you yesterday there is long genealogy, which I presented to you yesterday. I'd like to know how many of you have remembered the names. No? You don't know?
Remember Jesse?
Boaz.
And
Jesse.
Azor.
All right, maybe if we put all the names together that you do remember, maybe we'll make up about half of the genealogy. So you can't leave camp without knowing the exact genealogy of Jesus from beginning to end and reciting it backwards and forwards. And impress the bishops with it. Who is the first ancestor of Christ mentioned in that genealogy?
Abraham.
Isaac was the son of
Abraham.
So Abraham is the first one who's mentioned in the Gospel of Matthew. The reason is that Abraham is the ancestor of Israel, the ancestor of the Hebrew race, as he's often called. We remember him in church, especially at funerals. And we remember him every time we invoke God. When we say God, we don't mean God in some kind of generic sense. Whatever is out there, if there's anything out there. That's not the way Christians think about God. When Christians and Jews, for that matter, speak about God, they very often mention this phrase, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. At funerals or at memorial services, parastas, we always, at the end of the parastas, at least that's what we should be doing, when we say, Christ our true God, we say, he who has risen from the dead, trampling down death by it, Christ our true God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is this particular one, not just any kind of dreamed up divinity, but specifically the one who spoke to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Abraham is brought up in the Gospels also. There is a dispute that turns very sour between Christ and the Pharisees, because they keep telling him, why do you bother us with all this teaching of yours? We are the sons of Abraham. In other words, come on, we know this stuff, all right? So just leave us alone. I mean, what do you know? After all, he's not a trained theologian, right? He's not a scribe, he's not a Pharisee. The Pharisees were the theologians of the day, so don't think about Pharisees badly. The Pharisees were the most educated of their theologians. St. Paul was a Pharisee before he knew the risen Christ. So Pharisees were the professional theologians, and Christ was not a Pharisee. He wasn't a scribe. He was not a priest. So he was not from the establishment, and he came from Nazareth. So overall, they kept telling him, we know this. We are the sons of Abraham. And he replies, you're not the sons of Abraham. You're the sons of the devil. Which is, oh, what? Very, very harsh, isn't it? And then he tells them what he means. It's very powerful rhetoric. He doesn't mean it literally, of course. But he tells them, if you were the sons of Abraham, you would do the deeds of Abraham. And I tell you, God can raise sons of Abraham from these stones. So, whatever they mean, the two parties, both of them refer to Abraham as this reference point that matters. We're the sons of Abraham, which means we are good, we are okay, we know things, we are God's family, God's elect people. And Christ replies, well, it's good to be the sons and daughters of Abraham if you do the deeds of Abraham. So he also replies by referring to Abraham. So overall, Abraham is a very, very important reference point for Judaism, for Christianity, and in fact also for Islam. These three religions that we call the three monotheistic religions, they all refer to Abraham. Muslims call him Ibrahim. but they have many of the same stories that we have in the Bible, in the Quran. And they have great, enormous respect for Abraham. They also say he was the originator, the first one to believe in one God, at a time when everybody else believed in many gods. This is Jewish, Christian, and Muslim belief. So it's important to know a bit more about Abraham, and that's why I'd like to tell you two stories, which are not easy to hear, not easy to read, but you're very smart, and I know that you like to wrestle with texts, so maybe we can do this. Yes?
Roughly, how long is the timeline from Abraham to Jesus?
Oh, well, maybe 1800 years, 18th century, 19th century, something like this. We don't know exactly when he lived, but we have a vague idea, somewhere around the 1900s, before the Common Era. So, about Abraham. Abraham was a polytheist. Abraham believed in many gods. If you don't believe this, read your Bible. It says so. Abraham believed in many gods. And it should not surprise you, because everybody believed in many gods. Because it made sense. To say that there is one God didn't make sense to most people. Because they thought, well, there's so much stuff in this world, so much variety. How do you account for it? How did it all come to be? Obviously, there must be a lot of the same kind of variety up in heaven, right? So there are streams, mountains, hills, animals, you name it, bees and wasps, which you killed today. There must be a sun god and a moon god and a river god and Lord of the Flies and all these things. So multitude above, in heaven as on earth, or on earth as in heaven. This is a very ancient principle. So it made sense to the ancients to think about this in this way. And Abraham was from the city of Ur. Does anyone know where Ur is? Well, maybe it's pronounced differently in English. Ur on the map somewhere? No?
Mesopotamia?
Mesopotamia. But where is Mesopotamia?
Iraq.
Turkey.
Iran.
Middle East.
Middle East, yeah, that's a good guess always with the Bible. Right? Middle East, you can't get wrong. Yes, it's in Iraq. It's the south of Iraq. So this is where Abraham comes from. If you were to speak in modern terms, Abraham is an Iraqi. And he travels all the way from the south of Mesopotamia up, and then turns left and descends in the Holy Land. That's his very long journey. How he comes to travel such a long time, at the time when people, especially when they got old, they didn't travel that much. In fact, yours is a very mobile culture. I say yours because most of you born here, so I consider you Americans, Canadians, locals. So yours is a mobile culture. If you get a job in Hawaii, you'd go, of course, but if you get a job in Alaska, maybe you'll take that one if it's well enough paid. Or California, wherever your job takes you, you will go. You and your peers and your friends and your families perhaps also. But it wasn't always like this. People used to prefer to live and die wherever their ancestors lived and died. And when people grow old, they don't really move that much. They prefer to keep doing the things they've always done. So Abraham starts to travel when he's already very old, and he travels a lot. And there's a very peculiar way in which he is called by God.